Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Womble. I'm an econ major here at the Darla School of Business. Today, I wanted to talk to some of you about our wage requirements that are currently stated in today's government. In sources that I've researched, I think that I found a very diverse amount of information that represents both sides of the wage battles in America. I think that by informing groups of people on matters such as this, we would be able to make policy changes that might better our economy and our societies within America. So I'd like everyone to raise their hand if they have had a job before and gotten a paycheck from someone. I'm hoping at least a couple of you guys have. Yeah. As I'm sure most of you know, the federal government has a minimum wage of $7.25, which requires all employers of part or full-time jobs to pay at least that amount per hour of labor. So you have to pay $7.25 for every hour that is worked. Sometimes they have exceptions for stuff like if you're working at a job that has tips. So if you're a waitress or a waiter, then there's a smaller amount. I think it's like $2.25 is the minimum if you are required to get tips. So besides this, you might be experiencing even higher wages than this due to state and county laws that enforce wages up to $16. For example, within the city limits of Seattle, this is the minimum wage. So McDonald's workers, they're getting paid $16 per hour to work at a very, very low skill job. Policies like this are put into effect for two main reasons. First, to help the lower middle classes live a more sustainable life, but more importantly, to encourage those classes to work in the first place. So the people that weren't necessarily looking for a job and they didn't want to work at McDonald's per se because they can't really find another job. Now the McDonald's is paying $16 an hour. They're kind of like, oh, well, I might as well just work there. And according to the Cameron School of Business, our country is experiencing a measly 63% workforce participation rate, even with these higher wages. Seeing that we have tried out a higher wage rate and got information like this from these tests, the federal government keeps the minimum wage at a higher rate still. Wages this high means businesses have less money left over after paying their workers. Many politicians think that this means budget cuts elsewhere. So like when they apply a minimum wage that's very high, they kind of think, oh, well, we'll try and outsource from a different spot and try and cut costs in different places. But in the long run, people end up just, oh, we don't need two people to work the fry machine at McDonald's. So we'll just fire one of them. So they end up having less people that they're able to keep working at wherever they're working. With there being a trade-off between people making more money and more people in the workforce, it seems more reasonable for more people to have jobs rather than some jobs and being paid more. So, I mean, I'd rather, like me and Matt, I'd rather us both have jobs than me get paid $16 an hour and he has to sit at home alone eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So speaking to the young students in the room, we can benefit from policies like this too. Wage cuts means companies are more eager to hire than ever. And hiring teens, according to the Employment Policies Institute, is how we will be able to sustain this tempered bullish market and avoid a recession, which I know a lot of you, maybe a couple of you have heard that we're kind of peaking in our economy right now in the GDP and kind of heading towards another recession, which is not good. I know some of you might be thinking that because the wages are lower, you're not going to like it, but getting opportunities earlier in life have found to lead to more successful careers down the road, even if you're not being paid as much as you were before. So kind of taking the cutoff when you're working in high school or right before college, you're not getting paid as much, maybe $7.50 or $5 instead of $7.50. You might not like it then because you can't take as much money into college, but in the long run, you'd rather take the job then, which gives you the job at the big company later after college. While journals like the Balanced Career state that a raise in minimum wage might increase the standard of living for many impoverished families, it might also put just as many on the street by reducing the amount of jobs available in the market. This in turn might cause more to use government resources aimed to help lower classes, which would increase the taxes we pay to fund those programs. So like I said, if I was getting paid 16 an hour to work at McDonald's and Matt was out on the street, he might have to go to the local soup kitchen, which was funded by the state. So my taxes would be raised. And so would Madison and everyone else that's watching, we would all have to pay more when me and Matt could just be making $7.50 an hour working at McDonald's. While our wage rates since the last minimum have been set, have not increased with inflation, neither have our labor participation rates. So the Economic Policy Institute argues that wage raises with inflation won't affect the unemployment rate. While the last minimum was set so much above what it should have. So during the last raise, our economics showed almost a 20% in decline in full-time labor participation, showing that Americans are making more money. They choose to work less. So if I had a full-time job or career at McDonald's or whatever, and I was making $7.50 an hour, and then I got a big pay bump up to $16 or however much it was, I'd probably take a lot less shifts and I'd still be making the same amount of money. However, in professions like teaching and nursing, who are in most cases required to work full time, pay raises are beneficial to the economy as money is staying in the trade circulation. Therefore, implementing a policy that encourages people to kind of stay in the workforce, even if they are making more money, would help America and not a pay raise for all. So it's kind of what I want to talk about. So if you guys have any general questions, then I guess probably ask them now.
I worked this summer. I ride horses, so I worked for a trainer who was professional, and I worked 8-hour days and made $12 an hour, which is pretty good.
Yep.
But we would go away to shows and travel for 2 weeks, and you would end up working 16-hour days. So that was kind of nice, but there was another girl who was working with me over the summer, and it was either I or her that went and traveled and made all the tips and stuff. So I understand the higher the pay, the less opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that can kind of be shown by even if the employer, if the employer, you said made 12, right? So maybe if you guys both got paid 9, I mean, I know it's $3 adds up over a 16-hour weekend or whatever you just said. I know that kind of adds up, but I think that the opportunity that both of you would have can really majorly benefit the economy more than just one single person. So I definitely agree with what you said there. If anyone else had any jobs over the summer, they'd like to kind of talk about how much they got paid or anything like that.
Yeah, I worked as a waitress, so that we make $2.13 an hour. And in Virginia, the minimum wage is $7.25. So the thing about the restaurants is you get $2.13 an hour, and then if you don't make $7.25 an hour for every hour that you worked with your tips, then the restaurant is supposed to reimburse you for that. And actually, I don't know if y'all heard about it, there's a $2 million lawsuit from the restaurant I worked at because they got caught not paying full minimum wage to all of the servers, because you might make $200 on a Friday, which would maybe cover your hourly wage, but on a Monday you might not hit that. You might make $50 to $80 in the night, and it's the same amount of work, but way less tips. But yeah, there were hundreds and hundreds of employees that got reimbursed. I was one of them. I wasn't super affected by it, but whoever took that lawsuit to court, I mean, they really kind of set a fire under that company's butt, because they had to watch it now, and they lost a lot of money from it. And I just wonder how many restaurants are doing the same thing, especially ones that aren't super big and aren't highly regulated.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that kind of goes into this is, so there's a federal minimum that each state has to abide by. Like you said, in Virginia, I think most states abide by the $7.25 minimum wage. But if you go to the county laws and city laws like Seattle had, they kind of don't really regulate whatever their small businesses are, and that kind of goes bad for the employees. When you end up not getting paid how much you should have, that's really not something that should be happening. And I think not just a lowering to the minimum wage, but more of a regulation on how much everyone's getting paid, so that waitresses and, like I said, teachers and nurses they are getting taken care of because they are a part of the economy that's really bettering like everyone in America.
Yeah, the one thing about tips though is it really motivates you to work harder, which is kind of like one of the aspects that's like good. I mean, like that's why I think it's better that servers don't just get minimum wage, which is, you know, kind of one thing that's good, but it's also something you got to definitely watch out for.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, I wish we had that here. I waitress for a little bit like last year, like around this time, and that was like definitely not a rule. And like we didn't get a lot of business, like you said, on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. And if I worked on those days, then I probably definitely did not reach like minimum wage. So I don't think we like have that here. But
It's supposed to be like all of your hours over 2 weeks. Like if you divide out all your tips by those hours, like it's supposed to like cover it, but like sometimes it doesn't quite make it. And like that's where like the issue was. Like, but
Gotcha.
I mean, like you definitely like when you're working like on a tip based job, like you're gonna have those nights that just like really suck, and then like you're gonna have better nights.
Yeah, for sure. So if that's all they have to say, thank you very much for listening. I hope everyone's a bit more educated towards their county or federal minimum wage requirements. And I hope maybe they might influence you in next elections, whether they be local or for the country. So thank you very much for listening.